What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here with part 27 of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Karl Franz, not Volkmar the Grim, who I was looking at and was this distracted by, old world modded whatever, etc. campaign. So as we saw last time, Volkmar, who again I got distracted by, got himself a nice, I don't know, notch in his belt. A enemy crossed out as a Manfred was cast down, and I imagine we won't be seeing him again, as Qatar is the only settlement that he has remaining. And plenty more crusading to do down here. There are Necrarch Brotherhood vampires to knock out. There are Poxmakers of Nurgle aplenty. And of course, if we're looking to go after the dead or the ogres, there is a lot of stuff to do down here. And generally speaking, other battles have been achieved, but the most important one was the battle gained via Cass's Belly against the Sylvania faction, who we have now added by force, mind you, into the fold. We are starting to approach the end of this campaign, and I want to make sure that we get all of the Empire territory that should be ours in the, in our hands before said campaign ends. Ooh, I do notice that these guys are at 9 fealty. Huh, right, or do we no longer have the requirement that it be at 10? I don't remember. Well, either way, we will probably not declare war on these guys. We'll just confed them, as there's only 2 major confederations remaining and only 1 in the actual empire here. Although I think we might actually do this one first just to get the Bretonnians. Anyway, all that aside, I think we were about halfway through the turn. I did the admin, as in moving the heroes and building the buildings, but I think we've only moved about half of our troops, which were our armies, and which we still need to move by virtue of the fact that I believe, I want to say 3 battles are upcoming as soon as we end the turn. I mean, I guess we'll just move and find out. So let's move. Alrighty, Stefan von Kessler, you're going to go to Vanaheimling home and keep on hunting whoever it is you're hunting. Frankly, I'm kind of tempted to loop you back around northward towards Village. We're really sick of dealing with their mutagenic energies, so we got to deal with them by killing them all. House Festag for you, I guess, and we'll obviously be transferring that territory. I think I just saw that Volkmar, who, again, distracted me, but we'll be having to move this turn as well, so gonna not forget him. Wolfram Blaze, who are you again? Ah, yes, cannon delivery. Cannon delivery will keep proceeding to where a cannonry army is being built. Well, maybe not quite a full-on cannonry army, but certainly an army with lots of cannons. Huh, he didn't move. Alright, try harder. Alright, Boris Todbringer, Toddy, you, I guess, are, well, this is the only place that's close by, so you're gonna hit this place, and then all the way down here in the south, I guess, I'll resolve. A little bit of damage once again to the things in the woods, but it is what it is. Alright, enemy province. Okay, not quite secured, but we'll get there. Alright, so that was Toddy. I didn't check where he was in the list, but he should be about halfway there. Alright, Humphrey Bruckert. You're still trying to deal with Eschen, and let's see if you can't go after Fabrigir here. See what he does, how he reacts to this. Mostly, I just don't want him moving around here. Frankly, if we can force him to cross the river, I don't know if we can. Yeah, we can. Maybe our allies will be able to knock him out for us if they move first, I guess, depending. We'll find out. Bruckert, you're stuck where you are since that was all of your moves, but we can't be leaving too many Skaven armies running around here. At least until we get another army of our own to sort of... ooh, you transfer some stuff. At least until we get another army of our own to... back us up. Durthu still likes us. Again, we're kind of in a weird dynamic where half of the Wood Elves love us and half of them hate us. But it is what it is. Anyway, you guys can sit here with the extra troops should we need another army sent out, and most likely we'll send the Knights in War to help deal with the Skaven because, well, there's no undead to be putting down here anymore. Land Admiral Zintla, you... Ooh. You cannot reach Karak Kafir Kamaz, but you can reach Kazid Wyrwarn, so you're gonna go there. And then we'll move back around here. Oh, looks like you're gonna take Alimento, eh? Huh, I actually would prefer to get that for us. Excuse me? The Deliverance steam tank is going to die to this. This is what you're telling me, game. Okay, we're gonna have to manually fight this real quick because... Wow, okay, I mean, war wagons at least are fragile. This is a legendary unit. And a steam tank at that. I'm not entirely sure this entire army could kill the steam tank by itself. If it weren't for the fact that it would get damaged somewhat, I'd be kind of tempted to just try, because this is genuinely silly. But in the name of saving time, we'll just kill the enemy fast as we can. So start deployment. Is everybody together? Huh. Yeah, it's saved. Like, I really would like to know in what situations the game saves the formations and stuff that you used from the previous battle. Because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, and I really don't understand when it does and when it doesn't. And then sometimes it won't save them within the same episode, and then other times it will save them across episodes? Like, what the heck? I guess I haven't shut down my PC since then. I've definitely shut down the game. Interesting. You know what would be the better way to do it? Just to actually look up how it actually works. Or maybe I'm just an idiot, but anyway. You guys... Oh, you're on your steam tank now. That's lovely. Alright, you guys gonna go forward? You're gonna go forward. In fact, we can just more or less move you forward. Let's unskirmish mode everybody so that they don't run, and then start the mode or start the battle. You guys go for moving forward. We'll pop you into battle mode. Alright, charge, charge, charge. Have you guys snipe the enemy lord. We'll have you spirit leech the enemy lord, and steam tanks you can charge as well. Like so, and like so. You can maybe charge the bats. You're getting a little bit damaged. Okay, fine. I guess we do need the gyrocopters. Fine, fine, fine. You guys keep moving forward. Spirit leech should kill the enemy lord, and let's help out with you guys. Back off. All right, fine, fine. Back off, everybody, but the steam tanks, or by which I mean mostly the war wagons. And move in the gyrocopters. Like so. And, ooh, yeah, look at that. The bats are doing a good job hurting the war wagons, which is exactly why I figured that it would be the war wagons who would get hurt. Although it might have actually not been the bats that were hurting the war wagons so much as our own friendly fire hurting the war wagons. That's possibly or probably even more likely. Alright, either way, the battle's ours. Yeah. About as expected. We probably could have just kept skirmish mode on the war wagons and not on everybody else, and then it would have taken no damage, but in reality we did take no damage because the war wagons didn't actually lose any models, and thus they're fine. Yeah, in what world would the steam tank have gotten killed there? I have no idea. I mean, it definitely, if it was just the Lord and the Deliverance steam tank, the enemy would have had no chance. Maybe there's sufficient armor piercing on everybody around to have harmed the Deliverance, but I'm still disinclined to say that they could have killed it. Especially since this one's got that steam expulsion variant with a little bit of extra AoE, and thus much more likely to dish out additional damage to blobs of units blobbing around it. Honestly, I mean, I was somewhat expecting the Outer Resolve to dislike this army, but not that much, considering the relative strength of the units here. But oh well, not a big deal. Hopefully we'll just find some more big fights and then we'll need to auto-resolve. Alright, we are not keeping this place, are we? But build something just in case. In case we need the value of it to trade to Karazakarak, in case we want to unscrew some more borders. Anyway, Valmir von Ronkov, you're fine as you are. Bruno Schreiber, you are waiting for the ogres to move on in. Yeah, alright, you can sit there. Hellborg, you are going to Krakar Ravensvak. Alright, just go through the... Yeah, alright, just go up right outside it. Let's see if there's any armies here. Would be interesting if it was Scarby. No, it looks like he's not back yet. He did just die, admittedly. Ah, what do we have here? Ooh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Huh, I don't see that. Well, these guys can actually reach us while we're in march stance. Well, that ain't great. No. Oh, it's a decent little Norscan army. Huh, I guess they were... I didn't even realize there was another canal here. I thought that this was the only one. Well, interesting. Looks like Kurt Hellborg, you're probably going to get a fight. That means we'll probably have to apply some points. So speed of horse, because it buffs everybody. I don't really care about your own personal armor, because you're more or less fine. Let's get... I mean, out of these, is there anything that we would bother ever putting in this army? It's unlikely. Maybe a couple of demigriffs to represent the Reiksguard that would be on demigriffs. I think it's kind of unnecessary, but well, maybe we'll do that. Just for a little bit of anti-large, some halberds, because this army has a distinct lack of anti-large in its current form. And let's also grab... I'm going to say max out regrowth here, or at the very least reduce the cooldown. And otherwise we should be good to go, minus the, of course, full speed stance. But, well, who knows if the enemy will actually try to attack us there. Recruiter Olden, you have Pistoliers now. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Could put a couple of Noble Sons Abroad in here. And then Heroes. Yeah, alright, that's more or less maxed out in terms of that army. So, you, Ernst Puttkamer, you're going to head to the Bleak Moor. Marcus, I would like you to besiege Citadel of Lead, where Bellicor is waiting. And you're just going to occupy this, and then you are going to besiege Citadel of Lead. Actually, it depends on whether Bellicor moves first or whether it's one of the Dark Elves that moves first, now that I think about it. Because if it's the Dark Elves, that might be a little bit much for Wolfheart's army, admittedly. Because they could attack us with multiple armies. Actually, I'm not even sure we could get away now. Well, if you die, you die. Good luck, sir. I don't like Wolfheart enough for me to care. Anyway, you're going to transfer these Pistoliers. And if Wolfheart has to back off, he'll back off. We'll probably give points to his heroes, though, because he's gonna need them. Alright, Pistoliers to this army. Take out the Wardens of the West and the Huntsmen. Keep the melee troops in, I guess. Like so. And, oh, okay, you can't move anymore. Alright, fair enough. Alright, Marcus, let's level you up such as we can, or as much as we can. Oh, you're not even... Okay, that's not great. I guess you're gonna want Mighty Forge for the buffing of the various war wagons. Yeah. And then the snipey war wagons and the Wissenberg's welcomers do double dip, but I think considering their relative fragility, we'll want to max out their defensive capabilities before anything else. You. I guess we'll head to Deadly Onslaught. Somebody is going to need to effectively fight Bellicor. Well, Grail Banishment would also probably be fairly helpful, and we only need 4 skill points in here. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Let's get to you self-centered, and then I'm gonna say Blessing of the Lady, maybe? Make you a little bit tankier. This guy has a bad tendency to take a ton of damage. Blade Shield for you, and then Scarred Vet. And we'll go for Blinding Majesty. You, Mr. Witch Hunter. I have not yet decided on these, though I guess since we're fighting Chaos, maybe a Templar is the way to go for the additional Vigor Loss reduction. Rather than Shadowy Servant, although it's a considerable increase in his armor-piercing missile damage, I'm not 100% sure if it's worth it or not. Though I don't dislike the bonus speed and stuff. I don't know, I will continue thinking about it. Definitely get Retinue, though, because it's a nice little damage increase. And you know what, let's get Counter-Striker Survivalist into Slippery, until I figure out what exactly we want to do there. We have the Zipfar 42-pounders for you, sir. Machine Oil to get the little bit of extra speed for the war wagons, including the Black Lions Hellblasters. And was there something here that we wanted? Let's see, that'll do. Dowie, attrition reduction, come from post-battle loot. Not really. Berkvar Handshake, a little bit of extra increased range. Why not? I don't particularly care for the speed in the stock because it isn't super relevant in this army in its current form, so we're going to forego that. Let's just get you... Go youth... Oh. I was going to say go through hand-loaded, but I realize now that maybe that's not the way to go. Let's get Machine Oil, and then let's get speed and ammunition for missile troops. Probably more critical to us. And then we'll start moving through to Berkvar Handshake. Alright, and then lastly, Kalara, you have, let's see, Endurance, Ambush, Defense chance. I don't think we can get ambushed, but let's not risk it too much. But, obviously, the range for Hero's Army is the critical thing. Charge bonus when attacking. We don't really get too much advantage of that. The Hunt is available at rank 25? Really? You need rank 25 for plus 1% ammunition in this army? Why? This is nowhere... What? I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a strong enough buff to warrant such a high level requirement, you know what I mean? Anyway, Sword Player into Foe Seeker, I like the additional speed bonus in case we need to move away. Alrighty, well, you guys are ready. I'd actually like to maybe give you items, but at the same time I'm too lazy to do it right now. I'm kind of into ending the turn as fast as possible. and then getting those lovely fights. So, that was that Marcus or was that Ernst that we just had to move? It depends because where they are in the list. I guess neither? Because, well, whatever, we're moving these guys now. I don't know why I clicked up there. Anyway, Ralph Brandt. You are stuck where you are. You have to wait. But Mr. Volkmar does not.
Grant me strength.
Volkmar, you're going to head to Qatar where we... Whoa, hello, you actually have a battle. Okay, I was not expecting that. That is very nice to see. That is very nice to see indeed. Giant pile of basic units, but then some solid units in the garrison, like Blood Knights and stuff. Yes. Yes, please. All right, let's level and then let's do this. What do we have here? Ah, we're 2 points away from Faith's Bastion, unfortunately. You don't need Artillery Master. In fact, your red line seems to be functional as it currently is. All right, well then let's get you Deadly Blade in case you need to duel enemies. Just double checking, but yeah, no, I think we're okay. And Warrior Priests, are you guys ranked 20 yet? Ah, you're not there yet. Oh well, you'll get there eventually. Might as well get you the Devout Hunter on death, though. We have extra powder and it's more important than Slippery, though I do like Tools of Judgment for that melee attack and defense when terror-causing units are in range, because, well, lots of terror-causing units are in range here. Enemy Missile Resistance Reduction. Luckily, all of this in this tree is decently useful for us, so we'll certainly put it to use. You have Grim Resolve, you have Tools of Judgment, still haven't decided on those. You have Slippery, so I guess similarly you can start or continue moving through this portion of the tree. And I'm going to say maybe a regular maintenance, get you a little bit of extra missile damage. I'd like to see what heights we can take the Witch Hunters in terms of their pure damage dealing. And though, again, with the Witch Hunter retinues buffing them up, they've been pretty nice. Wild Eyed, maybe? But we should probably try to move towards Benediction. So we'll keep doing that. And you have just reached Benediction, and... oh, damn, okay, I can't pass off deciding on this one anymore again. Or I can by not applying any of your points. Yes, alrighty. It's because these units don't need the... capstone of that, and these guys kind of do, but these guys are kind of never near them, so it's kind of iffy either way. Either way, anyway, you are going to attack Sigwald Van Hal and draw the rest of them out to play. Alright, valiant defeat, casualties high, horrifically outnumbered by 3 full stacks, lots of elites to use the enemy chaff to block our hits. Should be a fun fight. Go. Alrighty, here we go, trundling forward on that War Altar of Sigmar for glory. It's such a silly unit, but can't help but love it. Though I still think we should get War Altars of Sigmar and War Altars of Ulrich as support units available for the Empire faction in general. But maybe it's just me, I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna get a little bit of cart-on-cart action as the War Altar of Sigmar smashes into the enemy corpse cart, and the two sort of, you know, trundle menacingly at each other. And yeah, the animations for both of these things have always been really bizarre in the sense that it's like the horses are kind of attacking, and they're kind of attacking by, I don't know, hitting the enemy with their heads or biting. I mean, yeah, horses do bite, they absolutely do. It's just that I'm not so sure that that's as threatening as it would be against big old monsters and stuff like that. Nonetheless, anyway, the enemy cart goes down with our own cart completely fine, and obviously the tiny little elements of the enemy army that are out here get overrun and destroyed rather quickly, with a combination of the Knights of Moor and the Knights of Everlasting Light shattering and otherwise overrunning those skeleton spears. But that's only the beginning of the battle, as we've got 3 stacks to take care of, and they're moving in as reinforcements as we speak. Just going to make sure that we knock out the last of the skeleton warriors out here, like so. I don't think he's getting back up. And then we'll move to other units. Alrighty, Volky is going to charge on through those spirit hosts. He, actually out of curiosity, yes, he does have magical attacks, but his melee attack is surprisingly low at 51. I guess it does make sense though, since he's got splash damage and is on a big ol' war altar there. Alrighty, well, he stopped those units of Spirit Hosts for at least a few seconds, but it's not really up to him to deal with them. We'll send the Knights of Everlasting Light with their magical damage in, and they should be the ones to knock the Spirit Hosts out. In the meantime, we have the, charge through the enemy ranks. We're not going to force them to blob up around Volkmar, but we will pop off that Soulfire real quick to continue cart versus cart action. It's like, I don't know. What's the Sigmar cart. I don't know. I'm just thinking of a name of a cart a game, but of a Warhammer variant of it. But anyway, I guess it's not super important. Enemy cart is down to half of its HP, and of course we've got the Knights of Moor riding around as well. If the enemy wants to move in to help, we're going to punch them for it. Other enemies are moving to attempt to chase down the new Altdorf retinue, who are going to back off and keep firing into the enemies as they run. There we go. Look at all those pistols. And this is why I wanted to build a pistol army as well. I do love the units, and I guess we're going to be seeing plenty more, well, if not of not this particular unit, or specifically a pistol unit, but in the same way that I love the Free Company Militia and Slayer Pirates, I also love Blackheart Corsairs with hand bows, so we'll be seeing plenty more of them with Loke here, who seems to be winning the vote for the next campaign. Speaking of next campaigns, if you haven't checked out the posts tab / community tab lately, the Skaven vote for the next campaign, the Skaven campaign, is also up and running as of now, and I believe Queekhead Taker and Throth the Unclean are very, very close to each other at the time of this recording in terms of their votes counts. They're like 20 votes apart. The votes usually get around 2,000 votes, so they could go either way there, folks, so and don't forget to make your voices heard. Anyway, another cart goes down, and Volkmar has moved away to the center of our enemy formation to drop another Soulfire in the blob of enemies. Too bad he doesn't have like a Rune of Spite or something available to him. Some kind of Sigmarite aura or something, I don't know, just to increase his damage a little bit. I assume that he doesn't. I don't see anything here. Not that he doesn't do plenty of work anyway because of Soulfire, especially if the enemy should blob up around him. Anyway, we've got our Flagellants facing off against the big old piles of Graveguard skeletons and zombies, and while our melee defense is low, it's not horrifically low at 13.9. Yeah, they should be able to hold off, and of course they do have ward save at 40% with the doubling up of the Grand Shield of Faith and Shield of Faith, at least for the time that those are up. Another Soulfire comes down. It looks like the enemy elites have arrived in the form of the Blood Knights, so we're going to hold them off with the Knights of Everlasting Light. Just hold them off, mind you, not kill them. We'll use the Royal, or the new Altdorf Company of Honor. Not Company of Honor, just new Altdorf Retinue, rather. I'm conflating two different unit types into one, to gun these Blood Knights down while they're pinned by the Knights of the Everlasting Light. I believe the enemy Lord is out, having been defeated by Volkmar, who is now going to go after the Vargulf. But more reinforcements are moving in. Black Knights, I believe there's another unit of Blood Knights in here, having arrived somewhere as well. But we're looking pretty okay. Over all the way on the right flank, we've also had our Knights of Moor, who have been working overtime this entire time, just charging through blobs of enemies. The Knights of Moor, because of their anti-infantry capabilities and the fact that they're not shock cavalry, just regular cavalry. They've been charging and fighting enemy infantry by and large, whereas the Knights of the Everlasting Light hunting specific targets. Gotta love the aesthetics of the Knights of Moor, though. These guys look absolutely magnificent. I feel like it's a complete waste that they didn't add Blackguard of Moor as a separate unit, as a sort of foot knight equivalent, but with halberds. Or some Knights of Moor with guns as well. They could do a lot with these guys, is what I'm getting at. I feel like they should. But that's just me. The devs are wasting these models by not using them to greater degrees. But anyway, the balance of power shifts to about 85% in our favor and is rapidly... the enemy numbers are rapidly beginning to dwindle on the front line. They have not been able to break through our Sigmarite disciples, or rather our... oh, down goes the Vargulf. Rather our flagellants. Of course, they have taken damage. Most of them are below half HP and have suffered a fair few losses. But I mean, they're flagellants, and in particular, they're flagellants in this particular army where they're not significantly buffed in terms of their armor. Only at 19. If we did to them what we did to the Men-at-Arms, we could probably get their armor up to like 100 or so. Or possibly even higher. Which is a possibility. I just felt that this was fine as it was. Anyway, with that, the enemy army is pretty much done for, huh? Wait, so the flagellants don't have frenzy? Huh, don't regular arch-lectors give frenzy to flagellants? Weird. So Volkmar, yeah, once again, I guess he doesn't... oh, maybe they don't. I'm pretty sure they do. Oh, no, maybe they don't. Maybe they just give them, like, 15% weapon strength or something like that. I gotta double check. We'll have a couple of flagellant armies outside of this army anyway. Anyway, a heroic victory. The enemy dying in droves and being banished back to the grave. Alrighty, there we go. Huh, 50,000 XP. I assume that that's the maximum amount you can get. I also imagine that it means that we leveled up 4 levels, which probably thus means we went all the way to level 50. Is that the case? Yeah. Unless this is a visual bug, but it may very well be the case. Anyway, a very nice fight. We had no need to rely on magics or the unreliable contraptions of the engineering guild, assuming we can ignore the War Altar of Sigmar. But anyway, just faith steel and gunpowder. Very nice. Sometimes it's nice to leave mage out of an army just to let the units put in that good old-fashioned work. Anyway, we get some interesting aspects of this post-battle thing here. For example, we can see that the Knights of War got 2 to 3 times as many kills as the Knights of the Everlasting Light, and considerably more damage dealt. This is because they were dealing with skeletons, graveguard, and zombies, and just riding through them, putting them back to the grave. However, despite having significantly 2 to 3 times less kills and damage dealt, the damage is dealt as gold value of the Knights of the Everlasting Light was significantly higher than that of the Knights of War, because the Knights of the Everlasting Light were rock, paper, scissorsing, hunting down enemy ghostly units with their magical attacks, putting down Cairn Wraiths, Hex Wraiths, and I want to say at least 1 unit of Spirit Hosts somewhere, and then fighting Blood Knights afterwards as well. Now, and of course both of the Blood Knight units survived, and the Vargulf survived. Oh, AI, you get the best luck with the Raised Dead. All the super elite units survived, of course. And even the Cairn Wraiths did. But the Hex Wraiths died. At least there's that. Wow, and the Black Coach and the Crypt Horrors survived. Okay. Jacques Hughes. But anyway. Interesting dynamic with the knights there. Similarly, while we did fight a fair few amounts of zombies with the new Altdorf retinues, they were also working away at things like Blood Knights and single entities when those guys came to the fore. Solid damage out of the flagellants, and hovering between 30 and 50k as they cut down droves of zombie skeletons. Graveguard as well. 352 kills and 85,000 damage on Volky himself, which perhaps unsurprising considering those soul fires of the lore of Sigmar, of his, and he may not be a caster, but that's still very solid work. Anyway, we're gonna have to auto-resolve the remnants of the enemies, so we'll praise Sigmar. Frankly, this army should only have praise Sigmar as an option. Alrighty, and then before we do... oh, wait, do you have Siege Attacker? Oh, don't tell me you don't have Siege Attacker. He doesn't have Siege Attacker, does he? Yeah, okay, we're going to need to get you Siege Attacker. I figured, though, you could crash the War Altar of Sigmar into an enemy gate and break through it, but it is kind of annoying that you can't, but oh well. Considering these guys did pretty well, let's give them some names. You can be Men of the Eternal Sun. Penal Legion. The heck? Alright, sorry if that... hopefully that didn't do anything weird to my recording. My PC tried to do an update and then I told it, no, freaking Windows doing weird Windows things. But anyway, let's see, Penal Legion. That's what I was trying anyway, like so. And then... Fanatics of Sigmar. Technically speaking, these guys aren't going to stay in this army, but eventually, well, I mean, we'll use them in another army, so it should be fine. Anyway, you guys sit there, and then I guess build siege equipment. Yeah, a real shame that you... Oh, he is only at rank 40. It was the visual bug. Interesting. I doubt these guys will sally out, so they're dead next turn anyway. And for all we know... Oh, you're not at war with these guys. Go figure. This is Guardians of the Valley. Wasn't there another little faction out here? Another minor little faction? Guardians of the Valley. Oh, it's these guys. They're here at Gateway of Eternity. Well, whatever. The Tomb Kings can deal with that. It's not our problem. Anyway, Volkmar, nice fight. You're close to the edge of the... list, unless I'm mistaken, if I can find you in here. What? Did I skip you? Well, maybe you're not so close to the edge of the list. Wait. We moved Kurt Hellborg. There he is. Alright, so Marcus we just moved. Again, I don't know why I moved up there. Gavin, you are besieging in the hopes that the enemy will sally out, and there's a decent likelihood that they do, so we should actually probably, level you. You do got a fair few points. Preceptor doesn't apply to this particular army, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Strength of Hardship buffs up the Grey Mountain Band and nothing, and buffs the Wardens of the West, meaning we have nothing else to put points in. I guess we'll want to get Flow of Battle. Let's do that, and then move through Blade Shield, and then towards Indomitable as fast as we can. What about the Empire Captains? Still kind of iffy on the officer squad in this army, so I'm gonna say no, but let's get Esteemed Combatants at the very least, or Combatant and Retinue Trainer to buff everybody up and then hard to hit. I just think that the guns will be out of, I don't know, this is kind of a Bretonnian army. On the other hand, it is a Bretonnian army led by an Imperial, so, I don't know, scare the peasants with guns? Maybe that would work reasonably well as well. Anyway, what don't you have that the other one had? I don't know, let's just get hard to hit. I'll figure it out later. And then lastly, the Wizard, the most important one. We want to get Arcane Conduit. So let's grab Final Transmutation and Arcane Conduit and Plague of Rust, because it's a solid spell. And then out of the spells here, the one that we would most likely be overcasting. Possibly Transmutation of Lead. Gehenna's and Searing Doom are the most important, so the others don't really matter nearly as much, because we don't use them nearly as often. I'm going to say Final Transmutation in case we need to hunt down and kill an enemy lord. There we go. Gustav Tintla, you are who? Oh, you're going to sit here and probably ferry troops as needed. Colt Thorpe's, you're fine where you are. Crusader Wulfric Ergiger, you are supposed to have this champion join ya. And that's still the case. I guess we could wait to see where this guy goes. Yeah, you know what, sit here for the turn, it's all good. We'll wait until you get your hero. You also will need your Amber Wizard. Oh, I think I took a look at the Amber Wizards and then promptly didn't like what... Oh, we don't have the ability to build them here. We did have the ability to build them down here, though. What do we have? Amber Wizard, Blessed Tome, and Spirited. Spirited is okay, but the increased miscast base chance is kind of iffy in the sense that these guys are kind of in combat a lot more than the others. But on the other hand, I'm kind of disinclined to fish for traits because it might take a long time, so let's just get the Spirited guy, whatever. Miscast chance or not. He starts at rank 50, so we can counteract a fair bit of it. And oh, no, not on your Pegasus. Why would we ever have you on a Pegasus? Imperial Griffin, there you go. And then we'll... Okay, wait. We will at least want to get the... Wins a magic cost reduction, and then to improve its scrying techniques and machinations of the college. Alright, there we go. That was Wulfric Ergiger. Troop train, you're traveling to deliver stuff to Mr. Ooh, let's hope you don't suffer attrition. Oh, we have another troop train, multiple troop trains. Okay, you guys are fine down here. You're also down here, right? Yes. Marius Lightdwarf, you can actually move. So you will move out of this settlement and then move towards the orcs that are up here. Go through them and then towards the undead down here. We're besieging like 5 settlements, so there's probably going to be a fair few fights. And now I have to find you again, Marius. Where are we here? Did I already look at Philip Ivan the Crazy? I did, alright. And Emil Hammerheim, you're fine. Hammerheim? Nice name. That's like a John Warhammer sort of name. John Hammerheim. Anyway, let's see. I believe that's it. So we can skip. There's technically... Okay, there's not that much money. Or at the very least, not enough money to be concerned with. Just in case they don't sally out here, let's build you some siege equipment. Outposts we can ignore. And let's end the turn. Here come the battles. Alright, and oh, yeah, okay, so it does look like one of the Dark Elf armies will move in to reinforce. This, I feel like, might be a little bit much for Marcus's army, at least in its current form. It needs items, it needs veterancy, and it needs levels. We could back off, and I do wonder whether they'd still attempt to go for us. Let's try it. Retreat? Alrighty, let's see how many of the... Tomb Kings, did they send all 4? They did send all 4, or they sent 3 plus the garrison, so yes. Valiant defeat for Balthazar Gelt. That's a lot of skeleton chariots, and I fear so many of them that there's a near 100% chance that our melee line will get overrun, and they will be able to get at those Hellstorm rockets. Let's see if that will be enough to clinch the victory for the enemy. Go. Alrighty, here we go to battle indeed, though it looks like the enemy will draw first blood by hitting one of our units of rocket batteries with that legionary barrage. The rocket batteries fire back immediately at the enemy piles of screaming skull catapults, which are somewhere within the smoke from the exploded ordnance. And there we go. We gotta knock out these screaming skull catapults before they can do too much damage. Unfortunately, we got rockets for days, and we should be able to take him out reasonably quick. Gelt, in the meantime, has closed the distance. He's gonna drop off a Gehenna's Golden Hounds in the blobs of enemies. Hover around, but then get ready to move towards that enemy Lich High Priest. Gelt may not be the fightiest lord around, but he's certainly fighty enough to take care of a Lich Priest. Anyway, enemies moving towards us. Can I essentially do a little bit of area denial with a Searing Doom, forcing them to back out and more rockets to smash into them? Otherwise, it's one of those formations with this particular army where we blob up all of our, or circle rather, our artillery pieces with all of our Silverin Guard and our Eldred's Guard. And there we go, got that silver and gold working for us. I suppose the Eldred's Guard sort of have silver and gold on them both, but anyway. I still like the whole concept of of using elven units in this particular army. Alrighty, now we do have to be careful. The enemy has an absolute ton of those chariots. Fortunately, Tomb King chariots are rather weak. Unfortunately, they have so many of them that if we're not careful, the enemy will either smash them through or get around us. Fortunately, we do have the units of Knights of the Black Rose helping out, and they are cutting swaths through the fragile enemy cavalry, whether it be the Nehekara horsemen or the skeleton horsemen. And I'm trying to go after the chariots afterwards, though it looks like the enemy will attempt to push through our lines of Silverin spears and get to the meaty artillery in the middle. Alright. And we also, of course, have the Eldred's Guard holding quite well, having taken about 20% of their damage. I imagine the now summoned Ushabti from the Realm of Souls will add to that damage a little bit. But hopefully the Silverin Guard working together with the Knights of the Black Rose will be able to hold them off just fine. Especially as Gelt is a little bit too busy, or was a little bit too busy. With that, he has defeated the enemy Lich Priest, but that was only the beginning of this particular fight. Looks like the reinforcements have arrived, starting with a flock of carrion. We charge both our Wizard and our Empire Captain at them, but the carrion just completely ignores them, rather than getting tied up by them, which I'd still find a little bit annoying, but what can you do? On the bright side, the aerial units like carrion have the problem wherein if they land, they're probably not getting out. Not that I expect the enemy would attempt to get them out anyway. They're probably just trying to tie up our artillery long enough to get a little bit closer. Now, most of the enemy are not yet close enough, whether it be from this side or the other side, where the enemy are moving in droves, so we are going to start by firing on the Ushabti with great bow with the rocket batteries, and then switch to the fragile infantry when we can. Gelt drops another overcast Gehenna's Golden Hounds, and then heads by himself directly towards that Casket of Souls, popping off that final transmutation upgraded, as we really can't have this thing firing volleys into the center of our fragile formation. Rockets firing every which way, and we continue to hold the circle around them. Frankly, this army maybe could have used two more spears, but unfortunately we don't have the room for them. We do need the cav in this army. They're being quite useful here. Unlike here, by knocking out more of those darn chariots. Of course, luckily for us, the chariots are quite fragile. I do wonder if SFO has at this point given the Tomb Kings enough upgrades to chariots to make them a little bit more viable into the late game. It would be nice. Because again, the chariot faction should be, you know, a little bit better at chariots than the Tomb Kings are. Anyway, there's elites heading towards us now. We've got some Necropolis Knights together with the Necrosphinx, which we are firing upon as best we can. We got lots of threatening units moving in. There's a Bone Giant, there's a bunch more Sepulchral Stalkers, and a bunch more Ushabti with Great Bow. I see 4 units of skeletons or Screaming Skull Catapults in the distance. And all the while, we just have to do our best to hold the enemy back. Alright, Gelt has returned to the main line. We can't leave the Necropolis Knights and that Necrosphinx just to attack us. So we're going to pop off that Plague of Rust and corroded armor on the Necrosphinx, bringing it down to 0 armor and increasing its fragility by a massive degree. Down it goes, even with the lack of armor piercing on the Knights of the Black Rose. It doesn't matter when you have 0 armor to speak of, and relatively low melee defense, I guess. Anyway, the Necropolis Knights are still in the fight against the Knights of the Black Rose, but this I think they can handle. 170 armor and 98 melee defense on them, thanks to Stand Your Ground. Gelt will leave them with a glittering robe while they deal with the Necropolis Knights. The rockets will continue shrieking overhead, but Gelt needs to head towards that Bone Giant. And there we go. Another of the final transmutations upgraded. We'll be going after the Giant. Gonna drop a quick Gehenna's Golden Hounds and a few more Tomb Guard milling around while the rockets continue to fly. And by the looks of it, with the enemies destroyed over on this side, it looks like we can reposition some of our spears. We're going to need to, as a lot of our spears have started to take a fair bit of damage, and reinforcements are still arriving on the field, with plenty more Ushabti and just generally speaking constructs on the way. And I just saw that chariot charge towards the Silvern Garden explode just as it reached our lines. Oh, those poor chariots. What's our max HP? 10,000? Yeah. Alrighty, let's see if we can hold. We've got more constructs having arrived. Sepulchral Stalkers together with a Tomb Scorpion, and of course Gelt is still busy with that Tomb Giant, though hopefully not for much longer. I'm gonna help everybody out, however, a little bit with that glittering robe upgraded. Gelt can cast it for basically free. I think it's 2 mana to cast it, so you basically have to keep it up at all times. Because it's a detriment to your army not to do so. Alright, a big old Searing Doom coming down on the Sepulchral Stalkers. It will damage them fairly decently, and Gelt has finally returned now because he's needed, as we've left the Bone Giant to deal, or the Empire Captain to deal with that Bone Giant, which is melting away, and due to the damage it's taken. Bounce of power is still very much in the enemy's favor. 8 minutes in. It's a heck of a long battle, and it looks like artillery, and more artillery I should say, has arrived. Screaming Skulls, while screaming down into our units. A single volley taking about 30% of the HP off of the units of whatever spearman variant that was. It was regular spearman. Anyway, here's the artillery exchange as the screaming skulls scream towards us. The rockets shriek right back at them, and, well, we knock out the enemy crew a little bit faster. And then they do ours. 2 out of 3 are out. Actually, 3 out of 4, I should say, but we got 2 more coming in as reinforcements. Another one and a little bit of a fire exchange over on the right flank happening as well. Time to actually leave the safety of some of our units and or the main formation, and we are charging one of our units of spears. I think it's a unit of Eldred's Guard, as well as the units of Knights of the Black Rose to close with the units of Ushapti with great bows. Somebody needs to stop them from firing away at us, and our particular army isn't, well, I mean, rocket batteries aren't going to be super effective at dealing with Ushapti with great bows, so we need to use every unit we can to stop them from firing. What can you do? On the bright side, it looks like the artillery shootout has gone in our favor, and the bounce power is at last nearly in our favor, at about 45 in our favor currently, %. But it's getting closer and closer with every unit banished to their banished to the grave. Looks like the Tomb Scorpion is nearly out of the picture as well. 20% of its HP remaining. Going to pop off a transmutation of lead upgraded on some charging Ushapti as they close the distance. In fairly decent numbers, but hopefully the Knights of the Black Rose will hold them back. Still 50% of their HP remaining, and thanks to Iron Resolve, they have not lost too many of their models, even if they have taken a fair bit of HP damage. We have no range units in this army other than the artillery pieces and the, I guess, summoned unit. Although I was thinking about putting another Empire Captain in here just to get another summoned range unit on field, as in that officer's squad, which has admittedly been pretty darn helpful in this particular fight. Got 24 kills rather, but 21,000 damage, which is pretty solid. About on par with the non-summoned units. Well, not the pikes, but like the spears. Let's see, 14. Well, no. The Eldred's Guard, there we go, 21,000. And I imagine the Silvern Guard are hovering around there as well, 26,000. Pretty solid. And just like that, very suddenly, though a lot of our units are now severely damaged, we can see the Knights of the Black Rose down to about, I don't know, 15% of their HP, though they'll recover to like 60% post-battle due to their non-model losses. Eldred's Guard severely damaged as well, etc., etc., etc. But we do manage to hold the piles of Tomb Kings off. Yeah, Tomb Kings do have a tendency to give you some really great fights. Towards the end of Thorgrim's campaign, we had some insane battles against massive piles of Tomb Kings as well, which I really enjoyed. So, yeah, Teclis, still a jerk face for forcing us into this fight, but, well, at least we got some nice fighting out of it, and I'd wager we'll probably get at least a little bit more. Watch Teclis peace out with them too. But anyway, with that, the battle ends, and another heroic victory and another massive battle under our belt. Oh, alrighty, there we go. A heroic victory, but definitely a close one, as well as we were on the verge of being overrun through the course of pretty much the entire battles. The Rockets did well, but they didn't do insanely well, in the sense that they definitely didn't win the battle for us. Lots of spear work had to be done by the Eldred's Guard and the Silvern Guard, who covered between 20 and 30,000 damage. Piece with a little bit of support work from our basic spears. As well, Gelt, of course, 90,000 damage and 500 kills, kind of matching Volkmar in his previous battle. And of course, the Knights of the Black Rose were also instrumental to our victory. And by providing that additional mass to our front line, it essentially prevented the more monstrous units and the chariots from getting through our front lines and into our artillery, which would have been bad. Anyway, very nice. 60,000 damage on More Sleep Delivery System. Death Strike Launchers, 40,000 damage. I don't think we named any of the Silvern Guard, but, well, I mean, they're elven units. They don't deserve names. Frickin' Teclis. Anyway. Anyway, we'll occupy and continue. Alright, it looks like the undead will sally out against Theodric von Blutten as well. Frankly, there's not that much of them, but, it's gonna kill the great swords. Why? Why would it kill the great swords and not the swordsman? You know, every single time the auto-resolve is a new surprise for me, it feels. But anyway, it's 2 stacks, and this is our weakest army in a sense, so I still think that it's probably worth a fight. Go.
Sigmar calls! And if they get back up, kill them again!
Alrighty, here we go. We are outnumbered here, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, the AI doesn't really understand how to play the vampire counts and is very light on the support units that make their infantry piles so powerful. Unfortunately for them, that means the battle should definitely go in our favor. That said, we'll keep it interesting, or at least as reasonably interesting as we can, and rather than deploy all the way back here to make better use of the hill or the sort of choke points in this battle, we've deployed reasonably close to the enemy. Anyway, the battle starts off with Mr. Theodric von Blutten heading towards the enemy up in the sky, fighting the enemy Vargeist. We will buff him with the harmonic convergence, partly to increase his damage to the Vargeists, and partly because we want the Roiling Skies debuff on the enemy. First of the enemy units will be the Vanguard Doggos, but they are severely damaged by the time they move towards our swords and will melt away rather quickly, I'd wager. Same thing is happening to an enemy unit of Graveguard, at least one unit of Graveguard that I can see out here. Ooh, I do like this. I always say this about Kemmler, but I do like his color scheme for his faction. It's a nice one. Anyway, the Vargeists have been pretty much defeated up in the sky thanks to the combination of the Griffin doing massive damage and the fact that Roiling Skies keeps the enemy debuffed. Almost tempted to give Mr. Celestial Wizard some additional air debuffing items, I mean. Pigeon Plucker Pendant, Feather Foe Torque, that sort of thing. But I'll think about it. And generic items might actually be, more generally useful, because it's not always that we actually run into these enemy or aerial units. Anyway, the remnants of the Vargeists head towards us, but will get obliterated. The enemy main line has reached us now, and enemy Graveguard are facing off against droves of swordsmen, while our flanks are being protected by the Great Swords. One of the units of Great Swords down to about half of its HP, but that's because they got hit by the enemy Hex Wraiths, so hardly surprising with a massive amount of charge, magical damage, and armor-piercing damage dealt by the Hex Wraiths, and the fact that we don't have magical damage on the Great Swords. Still, an upgraded harmonic convergence keeps them pretty darn strong, and they should, especially with the help of the Griffin and the debuff coming in from Blinded on the Celestial Wizard, should be able to hold off those enemy Graveguards just fine. Although it is some nice Great Sword versus Great Sword action. Alrighty, otherwise the bounce power is definitely in our favor now at about 90%. We still have a few enemy units to clear out and are taking advantage of the sort of holes we left in our battle line to allow our handguns to fire through them. Always nice to see the mix of enemy units here together. We can see the Graveguard, Skeleton Warriors, and Zombies all fighting together. Not that the swordsmen care one way or another. These guys are up to 165 kills, 16,000 damage, and they're certainly holding off nicely, and probably not as nicely as the Sigmar Sons, who funnily enough have not dealt as much damage, but that's by virtue of the fact I'd wager that we have more range firepower concentrated in our center, and thus more enemy melted away and thus couldn't get to the Sigmar Sons to actually fight them. Alrighty, and the battle is nearly ours now. The bounce power has shifted rather fully in our favor, and only a little bit more work will see the enemy melt away. Some of the zombies have managed to get around us, but that just means they'll get gunned down by being shot in the back, even as they're being cut down. And not that they're super aware of the whole thing, especially with the enemy Necromancer having been sniped by some of our handguns. And the fact that the regular zombies are just puppets. Oh, I like the lighting in here as well. Anyway, just going to move the last of our units of swords away and allow the guns to fire instead, simply so that we don't suffer any unnecessary additional casualties from friendly fire. Although it looks like the hills are interfering with us a little bit. Looks like the last of the zombies muster up and out. Yeah, see, that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. That guy got shot by like a dozen of his friends. And so did that guy. I probably could have just told him not to fire. Oh, guys, stop killing swordsmen. They survived the onslaught of the dead only for this to happen. Now I feel bad. Are you happy, game? Anyway, another decisive victory for us. Alrighty, pretty fun fight. Probably could have made it a little bit easier on ourselves by deploying further back, but hey, it's a decisive victory with 84 casualties. I don't think it was really unnecessary, and most of the enemy kills, well, maybe not most, but a lot of the enemy kills and damage came from those darn hex wraiths, perhaps unsurprisingly, as they crashed into those great swords and dealt fairly decent damage. But admittedly, those same said great swords did pretty well as well. 29,000 damage, 23k on Cleaver's Company, 38k on the Swords of Averland. Very nice for them. Alright, I believe those are the only named units in this particular army. Good job. Anyway, we will occupy the place. So Bellicor will indeed attack us by himself. It's still a valiant defeat with high casualties, that. So I do think it was the good idea to back off rather than fighting too. I do think that we could have won against the two, but I also think we would have suffered insane losses in this particular army if we had done so. It's not like with all of these heroes we have too much room for other types of units, and Huntsmen and the Men-at-Arms are pretty darn weak here. The Men-at-Arms in particular, and because this obviously isn't an army meant to buff them up. They have 66 armor, and with their extremely low HP, if we don't buff their armor to like chosen levels, like we have in our Men-at-Arms centric army, they're going to rout rather quickly, especially when faced against Bellicor or Skyla and Fingrim. Anyway, should be a pretty good fight. Do we need to fire? I'm just checking. I don't think anybody has fire weakness here. Maybe. I could use a little bit of extra weapon damage up front. Let's put it on these guys. I assume their base weapon damage, is fairly decently high as compared to their armor-piercing damage. I guess the same is probably true of the Wildwood Rangers, but anyway. I guess we could also put it on you. What's your base weapon? Yeah, your base weapon's fairly high as well. Alright, you're kind of in the center of everything, so let's put this on you, and then let's standard discipline you up. Let's get to it. Alrighty, here we go, attack indeed, and we've got the debut battle of our Hellblaster-toting Black Lion war wagons, who do look pretty nice with that color scheme, though funnily enough with the Huntsmen in this particular army, they don't quite fit as well as they would in other armies. Lovely. Always enjoy seeing the war wagons' little doors open up, and bam, it's a Hellblaster in there. Oh, of course, you're the one that doesn't fire while the other one does. Alright, well, either way. Anyway, the enemy is waiting for their reinforcements to arrive on the battlefield, so we're going to take best advantage of it as we can. We move all of our Huntsmen forward and fire away at the enemy. And of course, Mr. Wolfheart, I keep calling Wolfheart Volkmar, but anyway. Mr. Wolfheart is here away, firing or plinking away with that amber bow. Bellicor is unfortunately moving around a little bit too far from us, so what can you do? He's got 5.3 reload time, so nearly max reload. Good for him. We got now 107 missile strength on those Huntsmen. Pretty solid for a tier 1 unit. Though admittedly a lot of that is probably due to proximity of the range units buffing them. Alrighty, and obviously the army would probably be stronger with, you know, more huntsmen and less things like the Grey Mountain Band and stuff, but once again I wanted to be a little bit of a mix of units so that the heroes, the huntsmen that Wolfheart has with him each have a contingent of their own troops. Anyway, looks like the enemy is going to attempt to get around us with some Hounds of Decay, leading some Chaos Warhounds, and I believe that was a unit of Secret Chariots as well. We're going to reposition our Huntsmen to hunt these doggos, and make sure that as few of them as possible will give chase to us. And the reinforcements of the enemy have arrived, however, and while the enemy will reposition slightly, it is time for them to start moving towards us. Fortunately, the doggos, at least over on the left flank, have been largely knocked out, though interestingly, the enemy has decided to move all of the fast movers, again, more doggos and chariots from the right flank, or the enemy's left, to the left as well. I wasn't expecting this, which is a neat move by the AI, as now, unlike the others, these ones will actually be able to reach us. And as we've seen before, the doggos can tear through the extremely fragile huntsmen pretty darn quickly. But oh well, what can you do? Bellicor himself is heading towards us, taking hits from the huntsman, and of course Volkmar, and Wolfheart rather, and his huntsman. And will get knocked out of the sky rather quickly, but perhaps Bellicor himself was a distraction, as it allows Skyla and Fingrim to close the distance, pop off his ability, and then force everybody around him to go into Rampage, which is particularly annoying when it's used on the Huntsman. We have the Deathjacks, who are also holding the line and bracing against the Doggos and the Forsaken, and it looks like they might be destroyed, but if you're going to sacrifice a unit, it's best to sacrifice a Regiment of Renown, because they'll be back. Anyway, our melee... Oh, wow. Well, our Dwarven allies are killing off Bretonnians as well as they are the enemies. But what can you do? Our melee troops have arrived. I was originally keeping them back here in order to try to kite the enemy towards this place, considering we have fairly decent move speed on the Huntsman, but it looks like with the sheer number of fast movers that the enemy has, whether it be the Chaos Trolls or whether it be those piles of dogs, they reached us too quickly, and thus we just had to move the melee troops forward. Over on the left flank, our Wildwood Rangers are facing off against the enemy Trolls, in between the fairly high melee damage and decent armor-piercing damage, and bonus versus large of the Wildwood Rangers, I'd wager that the Trolls have little to no chance, losing about 80% of their HP, maybe 75%, and starting to run away. That said, our Bretonnian main line, weak as it is on the verge of collapse. Those two units of Huntsmen that got forced into Rampage by Skyla and Fingrim's Rampage-causing ability have also been destroyed, but that's hardly surprising, as they were fighting in the middle. Our second unit of Wildwood Rangers has also moved into the fray over on the right flank to help out those halberdiers, as they probably wouldn't hold for too long. It does look like some Beasts of Nurgle have also reached the black lines, and we're going to back those off lest they get destroyed. We have also, for the entire battle so far, been avoiding these aspiring champions, firing away at them periodically, of course, and now adding a little bit extra to it with more units. But not engaging them in melee, because this army really doesn't have anything that can fight them well in melee. And there we go, the Black Line's war wagons fire into the backs of those aspiring champions, helping out the Huntsmen, and knocking most of them out and forcing them to shatter. In fact, the entire enemy army is on the verge of shattering itself. The balance of power is about 95% in our favor, and only the demonic units remain on field. Wolfheart's still in the fight, firing point blank into those enemy Beasts of Nurgle, as the last of them will get brought down. A little bit too late to draw your sword, my friend. And there we go. With that, the battle is... Okay, there's a few Chaos Spawn running around, but anyway, with that, the battle is more or less done. We took a fairly heavy bit of damage on our fragile units. Again, we're using a lot of Tier 1 units in this particular army, the Huntsman and the Grey Mountain Band. But it allows for some pretty good fighting. Alright, well, I guess the battle won't end until the Chaos Spawn are done for, but frankly, it's more important to ignore the Chaos Spawn, allow the heroes to maybe kill them off while our melee units, there we go, while our melee units actually chase the enemy down rather than waste their time fighting the spawn. There we go, with that the last spawn falls and the battle is concluded. Very nice fight. Alrighty, there we go. A really nice fight for Mr. Wolfheart. Still hate him, but a really nice fight for him. I guess the nice thing about Wolfheart and making his army this way is that we keep it full of effectively just tons of basic units, which generally amounts to some darn fun fights. We did have to sacrifice the Deathjacks, but you know, they're Empire Archers, and Empire Archers are atrocious, and like I've said before, since the Regiments of Renown don't care about veterancy, if there is a need to sacrifice a unit, it'll typically be a Regiment of Renown, because we just get them back in 10 turns, and we thus don't lose a unit that's actually ranked up over the course of the campaign. Otherwise, a nice little fight. We got decent work out of the Bretonnians, basically just holding the line. At least one of the units of Wildwood Rangers cut down droves of enemies. The other one doesn't have a lot of kills, but has almost equivalent damage dealt as gold value, because this one dealt with the enemy trolls and then chased them off the map. Solid work out of the Gyrocopters and Wissenberg's Welcomers. Decent bit of work out of the Black Line's War Wagons as well, and the Huntsmen, minus the Deathjacks with their 2.2k kills. But who cares? They're Huntsmen. Anyway, or they're Archers, rather. Anyway, we are going to heal up. Ooh, also hero-wise, it's Volkmar by a bit, but he's still terrible, and his abilities are terrible. let's praise Sigmar.
Fight for the good.
Hey, it looks like Furt will indeed attack us, perhaps unsurprisingly, considering he has 3 giants, 2 scrap launchers, a couple of iron guts as well, and he himself is a wizard. Okay, I was about to say no caster lord, but in fact they have 2. Ooh, and the Flock of Doom is probably going to be the bigger annoyance out of them. And, oh, they have lead belchers, too. All right. Looks like this will be a fight worth fighting as well. Pyrrhic victory. Let's go.
In the name of Sigmar.
Alrighty, here we go. In the name of Sigmar, indeed. Most ogres won't ally us, so we may as well just kill them off. What can you do? Should be a pretty big old battle. The enemy has much more elite troops than we do, and we have basic stuff that is relatively unbuffed, no heroes or anything like that either. So we're just going to have to deal with it best we can. We do have reinforcements coming in, though of course the enemy does as well, and the enemy took their time waiting for them, and frankly, that might not actually work so much in their favor as they thought. We're going to reposition ourselves to take advantage of this little bit of impassable terrain where we have our mortars. Granted, the enemy might be able to charge through them and might be able to hit them with spells. But what the mortars have been doing this entire time is firing away at the enemy units of lead belchers and the enemy units of hobgoblin mercenaries, with the particular purpose of knocking those guys, well, not knocking them down, but rather to force the AI to try to dodge the mortar fire and thus not have those units effectively help, which is a good thing for us. Anyway, the enemy is moving towards us, and their first targets are going to be the Slaughtermaster and the Giant for our 3 war wagons that have remained with our battle lines. And there we go, big old Bruiser. Is that a Tyrant? No, it is a Bruiser. Have arrived on our battle line. The first of the enemy Giants is pretty much out of the picture, however, as despite the absolutely massive amount of missile resistance, 50% and 10% physical, that it has, the war wagons do great damage against big single entities like this. Alright, and I do believe the enemy Slaughtermaster has fallen as well, as has the enemy Slave Giant. And now we focus on the next. The droves of ogres have arrived on our main line as well, and our halberdiers are just going to have to do their best to hold the front lines. Unfortunately, one of our mortar units did get overrun as the enemy pushed through our front liners, but we do have more front liners moving in as swordsmen, and 3 units of additional halberdiers have arrived as reinforcements. Another Slaughtermaster about to get sniped by our war wagons. And we also got to remember that our second line, our close quarters infantry, our Free Company militia, are behind the main line and still firing at the ogres. The benefit of fighting ogres is that they tower, even their basic infantry tower over ours, and that means all of our pistols, all of our gunnery units can fire over the heads of our others and bring those enemies down. And eventually, the sheer amount of damage will begin to tell. Even the slave giants are toppling. And the balance of power has shifted to about 70% in our favor so far. We have caught up with one of the enemy's scrap launchers with our single unit of Wardens of the West, while our one of our units of War Wagons is out here trying to annoy the enemy lead belchers, in fact forcing them to rout, and then now going to go after that enemy unit, or that Noblar scrap launcher. And there we go. It was absolutely critical that we get the one War Wagon unit out there to snipe those guys, as they were going to be way too much of an issue for us. There we go. Just a matter of time now. Since the enemy was unable to break through our melee lines, that means our range units should be able to carry the day. Which is, generally speaking, the name of the game in terms of Imperial tactics. There we go with that. The battle is fully ours. And a nice little fight for a random little army. Always nice to see the sorts of basic troops hold off overwhelming numbers, especially against an enemy that has a proper army versus one just generated specifically to hold the enemy back in case they attacked undefended territories. Alrighty, there we go. Pretty darn fun fight with, of course, the War Wagons instrumental to our victory as our only relatively elite units in the army, and, well, in particular, sniping down those giants as well as the enemy lords and heroes was pretty darn helpful as well. Couldn't quite close the distance enough to get the enemy Nobbler scrap launchers and lead belchers, but I think the enemy army is damaged enough and that it's not a major concern. We are in our own territory, so I think we're free to take the cash this time around, or at least I assume we are. Let's take the cash. They will sally out of Campagrot. I am quite impressed because considering we've already defeated similar sorts of odds with this particular army, but I suppose these guys have Terrorgeists and some Vargeists and some elite stuff here, and that they didn't last time we fought the droves of dead, so why not? More action for those demigriffs of ours. Go. Alrighty, here we go for Heldenhammer indeed, and as always, our demigriffs will charge forth. It is absolutely an obnoxious army, to some degree, though again, we only have 5 demigriffs in this army, so obnoxious though it may feel against especially certain enemy types, our unit numbers here are severely limited. And I do really love the fact that we can get the Empire captains on demigriffs to lead the charge. And there we go. Time to crash into the enemy lines of skeletons, zombies, graveguard, whatever. As we've seen before with the demigriff army, the enemy has no way of stopping their charge, whether it be the Lancer demigriffs or the halberdiers. Not that this particular first little army is of any consequence in the sense that it has basic units, and Lance or Halberd doesn't really matter because they don't have large units anyway. Anyway, while Emil von Corden, the Lord of the Army, fights the bats up in the sky just because he can, we will run down and destroy the last of those zombies, as well as try to kill off the enemy Lord with our heroes, who will probably, who probably will disappear under the, I don't know, talons of all those demigriffs. There we go, I think that was him, and going down, and not in a good way. The enemy reinforcements are where the actual numbers and elites are, however, and they are arriving on the field. Hopefully we will be able to destroy all that remains here, and then reform for a nice charge into the new arrivals. Now, one thing about this particular army is that it does need to maintain a Death Star formation since we're only effectively using 5 units. Again, the Pistoliers are in this army not really to help or participate too much because I feel like 5 Demigryphs is already an insane amount of firepower, or, well, you know what I mean. The Pistoliers, again, here to chase stuff down, but that's obviously not super necessary against the undead. So they've just been sitting pretty in this army, in this battle, like they do in others. And maybe I could have them participate, but again, it doesn't really matter here. Anyway, big old blob of Demigryphs. Look at that. Oh, Demigryph Death Star. You are so obnoxious. There we go. Looks like we have some enemy Crypt Ghouls. Ooh, I like the sort of reddish color scheme on the Crypt Ghouls. I like that a lot. It's like they're all bloody and gross. Yes. It's doing it for me. Alrighty, and is it? Crypt Ghouls definitely have a bunch of different color schemes, but I feel like this one is decent. Though I'm not so happy about the yellow, the sort of, I don't know, loincloth or whatever the heck they're wearing. But anyway. It's just the garish color scheme of this particular faction, but it works for the Crypt Ghouls anyway. The bounce power is at about 70% in our favor. The enemy elites have arrived. Terrorgeist, Vargeists aplenty, Crypt Horrors, whatever, Hex Rates, Cairn Rates, it doesn't matter. Anything that has closed the distance with the Demigryphs is doomed to destruction. And though they may surround the Demigryphs, that just gives the Demigryphs a target-rich environment as they can stab, claw, bite, whatever, in all directions. I guess the Cairn Rates, with all that massive armor piercing that they can do, can possibly do some decent damage to us, but we have regrowth and healing available from the Life Wizard in here, and then whenever we can, we get the Shield of Thorns. And now that I think about it, if this army wasn't performing, and it very much is performing, but if it wasn't, what I probably would do is put a second Life Wizard in here, just so that we could have effectively permanent uptime on Shield of Thorns. And because that would really help in situations like this with the extra melee damage reflection. Anyway, the bounce power has shifted to about 70% in our favor. Many an enemy unit is melting away. Frankly, it's kind of hard to tell where the enemy lord and whatever are in the plus of units, but I suppose it doesn't really matter. One undead may as well be like any other in this particular situation. They'll all be devoured or destroyed by Demigryphs shortly. And granted, we could, like before, do a bunch of cycle charges through the enemy blob, but it wasn't really necessary here, or at the very least it isn't necessary now. Our circle of Demigryphs is doing plenty of good work. And of course, not to forget about Emil von Corden on that Griffin of his. Let's see, we got 13,000 damage, 73 kills, pretty decent. Although the other reason that he is helpful down here is that he has that stand your ground ability, which is really helpful, especially since we didn't go for drill sergeants on our Empire captain traits, but went for the champion traits instead. Which again, I do feel like it's appropriate in this. Though we could have, of course, made the army significantly stronger by getting 4 drill sergeants, because that would have, again, been permanent uptime on stand your ground, and a massive increase to the melee defense of these units. Another Shield of Thorns comes down. The enemy is, believe, pretty much out of elites at this point, with the exception of the 3-4 necromancers that are running around in support. Not that that's helping over much. I don't think they can heal faster than we can kill. And they certainly can't kill us faster than anything, because our units are all fine. No losses have been suffered, and any damage that has been taken has been healed by our own units. I guess if the enemy... I wonder how many enemy units of Blood Knights it would take to threaten this particular army, with supporting invocation and the heck, of course. Anyway, Now we've done plenty of that circle fighting, we're going to get a nice little charge through the remnants of the enemy army just because we can. We could have done this at any point because the enemy does not have the mass to stop the demigriffs. They can maneuver any way they please. And there we go. Plus, we wanted to close the distance now with those necromancers, make sure that we hunt them down. Individual champions are going to go after individual necromancers to make sure that they're gone for good. And of course, send a few more of those Graveguard and whatever remains flying. Balance of power 90% in our favor now, and I do believe the enemy army is in the process of shattering and beginning to melt away. Just a little bit more work and this brawl will be at an end. And I think this faction will be at an end as well, assuming that I forget what the name, there's like a little port in the middle of the mountains. But once that settlement's fallen. Though I do think we should trade it to ourselves because it controls the sort of passage from the Empire to the Southern Realms, and I feel like we deserve to take control of that. Anyway, with that, the last of the enemy army melts away in the battle's hours. Apparently, the game thinks this was a close victory, but for whatever reason, every single battle with this demigriff army, or nearly every single one, the AI has called a close victory. I don't really understand why, because we don't use the Pistoliers, meaning they don't suffer damage, they don't waste ammunition, and we have plenty of mana remaining. It's not like we took damage. I don't know. But it wasn't a close victory is what I'm getting at. Alright, there we go. A very much unsurprising result as the droves of dead really struggle against demigriffs with Lore of Life support, especially with all the buffs to the Lore of Life we have. Very nice for work for the demigriffs, and solid amount of damage out of the heroes, perhaps surprisingly. But I guess with all of them being champions and relatively buffed, they can do good work. Lovely. Occupy. Alrighty, we are most definitely out of time, but I guess this is Kurt Hellborg's debut battle, and due to the fact that he's in March stance, this might actually be a fairly tough one, which means we're gonna fight it. Go. Alrighty, here we go. Kurt Hellborg on field at last, leading his Reiksguard, and of course having leveled up with the Reiksguard armor and all that stuff, looking pretty good, or the Reiksguard lance and barding. Of course, this army is, what, 3/4 of an army? We are missing the Empire captains that are supposed to be in here to lead the individual contingents of Reiksguard and, well, whether it be foot or cavalry, but it's all good. Even in March stance, even... fresh. These guys don't have perfect vigor. I wonder why. Weren't they supposed to be tired from the... well, I don't know. Maybe the... Oh, it might be the replay that's lying. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, we make our way forward. Our Imperial foot begin the fight against the enemy berserkers and such. And while obviously Karl's army has Imperial foot as well, it's, well, we've only got 2 in his particular army. He's got more great swords than he does Imperial foot, so the Imperial foot don't get to shine nearly as much. But here, the Reiksguard's own army, and they're just going to have to show off. Alright, and the main enemy line is very much in trouble. The enemy lord is also on a chariot, which is a bad idea, as the Grandmaster should be able to take him down, no problem, especially buffed as he is, having used the Rune Fang. Okay, it's up, but there we go. The Ostland Rune Fang for now, I haven't decided which Rune Fang Kurt is going to hold, but anyway. Significantly buffs his damage. Anyway, the enemy 2 units of War Mammoths are still very much in the fight. We have sort of surrounded them both, one with a unit of Imperial Foot and a unit of Reiksguard. And they are, of course, taking a while to bring them down. Could use a little bit of anti-large in this army, I admit, because these guys are definitely a toughie for these guys, and it's taking a lot of resources to not only just keep this mammoth in place, but also to destroy it. Anyway, there are other isolated pockets of fighting. Here we have a unit of Reiksguard fighting in the trees against some Fimir Stalkers. Frankly, it's not an ideal fight for them. They did rout a unit of Marauder Horses while fighting the Stalkers, but we're now going to back them off as obviously the Reiksguard are going to be debuffed fighting in the trees. Same thing kind of happening here, but we've closed the distance with a unit of Imperial Foot and pinned the enemy Empire Stalkers, Fimir Stalkers. And now the rest of the Cavalry Reiksguard, or one unit of Cav Reiksguard, will charge into the back and dish out severe damage to the Stalkers, who will melt away. Bounce power has shifted to about 70% in our favor. The first of the enemy War Mammoths has routed, while Kurt Hellborg continues facing off against the second. Ouch! Damn, that... I mean, but yeah, that's exactly what I would expect to happen, but anyway. That one poor Foot Knight got absolutely obliterated. Yeah, some others go flying. Gotta love those War Mammoths, though. Alrighty, unfortunately for the enemy, the War Mammoths are not looking like they're going to be enough. The bounce power is 70% in our favor. The enemy range units have at this point been crushed by our Reiksguard, and though we are certainly taking damage, several of our units at about 70% of their HP, even with the healing offered by the Life Wizard. I mean, we gotta remember that we don't have artillery in this army, we don't have range units whatsoever, but it does make for some great cinematic shots. If it weren't for the lack of peasants, it's almost like a Bretonnian army. Especially in SFO, where you can use dismounted knights as well. And I see a fireball wow, look at that distance. What the heck? Who's this launched at? This launched at this Imperial Foot unit? Landed here. Okay, I have no idea who that fireball was launched at from one of these guys. Maybe it just missed somebody and kept on sailing over. But anyway, bounce power is 90% in our favor. The second Mammoth has at this point been routed, defeated by Kurt Hellborg himself. And now it's just a matter of time. The main two enemy units that remain on field are two Shamans, and it looks like, or Shaman Sorcerers, and it looks like when they rout, the last of the enemies give up, and the battle is ours. Perhaps should have sent a couple of those Reiksguard to hunt down those Shamans a little bit earlier, since they're pretty fragile. It looks like they go down rather quick. Slanesh giggle. But, well, we needed our Reiksguard in a lot of places, since the enemy outnumbered us by a significant amount here. Anyway, a lovely little fight, lovely little debut for the Reiksguard, and I'm sure we'll see plenty more from them. Alrighty, there we go. Solid fight, especially considering we were in a March stance. Did manage to pull it off. That was a close victory and a fair bit of damage. Our Reiksguard did, well, fairly well, as they do. 20,000 damage, 19,000 damage, Peacekeepers, Palatine Sentinels, and let's see, Ironclad Lancers. Oh, yeah, the Ironclad Lancers are the named units, and all hovered around 19k damage. Lovely. Imperial Foot did a little bit less, with the exception of this one unit in the very center of our formation at 35,000 damage. Very nice. They probably were fighting enemy, I'm gonna say Berserkers, Chaos Warriors, that sort of stuff. I mean, that's the only main line the enemy had after all. Anyway, praise Sigmar. Alrighty, what is this? Westerland, fealty, sure. +1. Send a military force and auto-resolve it. And then take the money. Alright, feels like it's been a while since that. Order, ally mission successful. Oh, good. Especially from Boris as enemy killed in battle, enemy killed in battle, enemy killed in battle, enemy killed in battle, enemy killed in battle. Silver Bank secured. What is where? That is this? Yes. Alright, you can immediately switch to Council of Burgomeisters, and we can... Well, I was about to say delete these, but actually we could probably keep them. Yeah, probably keep them. Anyway, Bell of the Ball for Marcus Wolfhard for defeating Mr. Bellacore, Creator, Constructor, Seafarer, Dawnstone, another Obsidian Blade, Imperial Pegasus for somebody. Somebody got an Opal Amulet. You will not have that. We'll give that to somebody who will actually use it. Another Light College Acolyte, always nice to find. Lucky Arrow, probably not the most useful item, so we'll ignore that. Dragonbane Gem, very much not a useful item, and we'll swap that out. Another Light College Acolyte. Ambush foiled, ally begins outpost construction, Aramateb dynasty destroyed, Skaven destroyed, a generic Skaven destroyed, ready for DUT technology researched, and there we go. Alrighty, that was a big ol' end turn, big enough and ol' enough to take us to the end of the episode, so I am definitely going to call the episode here. I've got a lot of editing to do, due to that being like 8 battles or whatever that was. Frankly, probably the episode's gonna be out a little bit later than usual because of it, but yeah, and you gotta do what you gotta do. Anyway, calling it here. Next time, more Karl action. It's a brand new turn and a brand new day, so we'll find more fights. And next time, what if we should... Well, we'll deal with it next time. Probably destroy Manfred for good and whoever else we need to destroy. Stay tuned for more Karl. Don't forget to leave those likes and comments below, as they will determine how long this campaign continues to run for. All glory to the algorithm, and thanks for watching.